Welcome to the Big Screen Symposium podcast. This session is from the Big Screen Symposium held in Auckland on the 4th and 5th of December 2020. Film clips played at the live event have been edited out of the podcast. In this podcast, storyteller and film director Sebastián Lelio gives a masterclass on the film experience, conceived as a two-way dialogue between filmmaker and spectator. Sebastián uses examples from his Academy Award-winning feature film, A Fantastic Woman, to demonstrate ways a filmmaker can offer opportunities to a spectator to reframe how they see the world. This session is presented by Images and Sound. Sebastián is introduced by Script to Screen's Executive Director, Jackie Dennis.
Kia ora koutou, and welcome to the stage, the Executive Director of Script to Screen and the Program Director of the Big Screen Symposium, Jackie Dennis.
Tēnā koutou katoa. It's my wonderful pleasure to be here at Big Screen Symposium introducing Sebastián Lelio, who has stuck with us through 2 postponements. He emailed, "You can count on me, Jackie. Go Big Screen Symposium." It is disappointing that Sebastián can't be here in person as originally planned, but we are delighted that he's still with us virtually. I became aware of his work after seeing Gloria at the 2013 New Zealand International Film Festival, although Sebastián had already directed 3 successful feature films in Chile. Gloria is a film about a free-spirited older woman who loves clubbing and the realities of a whirlwind relationship she has with a man she meets when out dancing. After the film, a not-so-small group of free-spirited and, yes, older women stood at the front of the Civic Theatre talking about all the reasons we loved the film until well after the crowds had gone. In fact, there was one person in that group that I know, a screenwriter, who has seen the film 10 times. Since then, Sebastián has made the Academy Award-winning A Fantastic Woman about a marginalised transgender nightclub singer facing the death of her older boyfriend, Disobedience, about a woman from an Orthodox Jewish community exploring her sexuality, and Gloria Bell, an English language version of Gloria, with Julianne Moore playing the lead. Narrative choices can be political acts. In this session entitled Filmmaker and Spectator, Sebastián will use A Fantastic Woman to demonstrate ways a filmmaker can offer opportunities to a spectator to reframe how they see the world. Please welcome again, Sebastián Lelio.
Again, thank you, Jack, thank you. I assume you can hear me well. So now, my English is not my native language, so I was like sweating, trying to make the first message fit into a 7 minutes length. But now I think we have more than that, so I can breathe. So the idea is to talk about the, I would say, the political quality of gaze of the filmmaker's gaze and the spectator's gaze, and how these two only when united, create what we understand cinema is. So at the beginning, I will try to share a little bit of preliminary ideas. Of course, this is an angle, a concept, a vision that I find very useful, but in any case, it's my intention to necessarily convince anyone. It's just mainly sharing from my perspective, which is not academic, but I'm mainly a maker, a filmmaker, a writer, and that's where my main source of experience and, let's say, knowledge comes from, if any. If you hear any dogs or anything, they are real and around me, not mine. So sorry in advance. The spectator gaze and the filmmaker gaze is what really creates the phenomenon of cinema. In the game of cinema, the problem of gaze is central. the relationship that is established between who sees and what is seen is crucial, because we see how the filmmaker has seen, and but we do see that. So the film always looks back at us. To me, it's really interesting to think that a film doesn't really exist anywhere, that is not really anywhere, not necessarily in the projector, not in the ray of light, not in the data, not really on the screen. A film is a game of lights and shadows, or if you want, of zeros and ones, that is somehow decodified, to use a quite technical word, that is interpreted by the spectator once he sees and hears, listens to the film. The relationship between the narrative machinery of a film and the perceptive systems of the spectator evolves in a progressive way while the images are unfolding on time in front of us. So when the film is over, the film is still not anywhere, except maybe in our memory, in our experience, because we see with our eyes, but also with our brain, with our memory, with our DNA, and I would say that we see with our bones too. So the ways of narrating are not operating in the void, paradoxically, but in the relationship with our ways of perceiving. When someone says, for example, I went to see a great film, a powerful film, a deep film, I think it's in a great measure meaning that work was capable of touching and activating an ancestral machinery, a perceptive machinery that constitutes us. Chilean filmmaker Raúl Ruiz used to aim for a tear that appears in a moment that is absolutely unexpected and for reasons that we cannot fully understand. I think that description somehow defines what depth means in cinema. It doesn't necessarily have to do with the themes that are portrayed or explored, but more, I would say, with the intelligence that the film has to connect with the perceptive systems of the viewer. So a film cannot be fully immersive. Only our experience can be fully immersive. Our five senses are the one that really fully immerse in the rich experience of watching a great film. So to me, the idea of projection, and I would say double projection or projection over projection, is quite enlightening. Rays of light projected over a white screen or a silver screen where there is nothing really, or again, data lit from behind, so to say, appeared as visual information and sound information that we contemplate. We project our own, again, projections, our own fantasies, dreams, fears, desires, on top of that mother projection that is inviting us to collaborate. So it's a dance. It's a collaboration. We complete the process. Without us, and this is quite, I would say, probably obvious, but without spectators, a film doesn't exist until someone sees it. A little bit like in the end of Death in Venice, if you remember that, Arsenbach The old man is watching this angel-like boy, Tatsuo, walking towards the ocean. The sun is setting, and Mahler's symphony fills everything with this oceanic feeling. And so we see that while he's dying, this man is looking at Tatsuo, and Tatsuo, knowing that he's being seen, stops and points at something that it's outside the frame. We never know what he's aiming at, but we are captivated because we are trapped in the process of completing, in the dance. We are forced, not to say invited, we are forced to feel what's missing with our own projection. A little bit like my favorite void in the history of cinema, the black scar at the center of the screen in 2001, the black monolith that now is back into conversation because this monolith that they have found somewhere in the desert in the US. There is nothing there. It's just a void. It's just an empty space. And we are again captured by it, projecting our own interiority on it, completing, fantasizing with the cinematic device, experiencing, I would say, pure cinema. So again, to connect again with personal experience and with the film that I was talking about a little bit before, A Fantastic Woman. I will later on show some clips for I'm sure many people hasn't seen it, but I hope that the general concepts that will be shared here make sense anyway. I really like to think that we inhabit in a world, in a reality that whose limit it's deeply, intimately related with what we are capable of really seeing, thinking, conceiving. The limits maybe of language, or of however mysterious way we or unknown way we define what surrounds us, and knowing that the experience will always be limited. So in this sense, the political power of cinema has to do with that. Again, we could say dance between reality and whoever is gazing, whoever is experiencing it. So it's the idea that when we are capable of changing the way in which we look at things, somehow the things we're looking at can start changing. Therefore, the very inherent political power of storytelling and therefore of filmmaking. If you were so kind to play the first clip, I think it would be a good moment, please.
Mira, lo que yo necesito es constatar que tú no tienes lesiones. Pero si no tengo lesiones. Entonces no va a haber ningún problema.
So what I'd like to do is talk about 3 moments in the process of making the film, writing it, shooting it, and then editing it, that were somehow like milestones in the process. And I think this can somehow allow you to understand how organic the entire process was. It was like pulling a thread that was taking us from the one step to the next while we were moving forward, half blindly, so to say. So I was, as I was telling you before, we were, with my co-writer, Gonzalo, we were playing around with an idea, what would happen if the person you love dies in your arms, but for some reason, that's a really problematic place for the other characters that surround your loved one, because for some reason you are rejected by them. So we were trying different kinds of characters, and nothing really clicked. And I was living outside of Chile for almost like 8 years, so I was a bit disconnected from the changes that were taking place in Chilean society and in my city, Santiago. So when the idea of what if this whole story is centered in a transgender woman's character appeared, I freezed. I remember being very troubled because, well, I didn't feel I had enough authority. I still don't, but I didn't know how we were going to be able to find the right angle so we could feel authorized to explore this properly and hopefully deeply. I connected a lot with what one of the speakers said before. The most important thing is people, and somehow that was the key here too. So we arranged meetings with different transgender women in Santiago, and it was very revealing to talk to them. And back then, I wasn't even sure I wanted to make the film. I was trying to understand if I was interested enough in making this film, in exploring this world, and so I was looking for a consultant, like a cultural consultant, someone that could help us along the way in the case if I was really interested in moving forward. And that's how they recommended us to meet Daniela Vega, who ended up being the main actress of the film. The entire film is on her shoulders, and you just saw her. So we met with her as a way to try to shake up my own ignorance, try to get rid of the cliches that we were somehow operating with, because somehow we were the image we had was depending a lot in the cultural representations that were quite insufficient back then, still. So I wasn't looking for an actress just for advice, but meeting Daniela really marked, really defined the project. After talking to her for a couple of hours, I was not only fascinated by her strength and her beautiful presence, but I understood that I wanted to make the film, and that I wasn't available to make it without a transgender actress interpreting the role. Back then, I had no idea that she could be the one, but this is again a way of sharing the process. So I came back to Berlin, where I was living back then, and we started talking to Daniela for like a year, and we became friends, and we learned to trust one another. She never really knew what we were writing about, but she was very generous, sharing her intimacy and what being a transgender woman meant in a country like Chile. So the first decision was to make this story about a transgender character, even though the story had nothing to do with transitioning. That was somehow backstory for the character. She had given that battle, won that battle, and now it was about something completely different. And the second moment that was very defining was somewhere in the middle of the writing process. I was trying to find the right the right translation, formal translation of this to this character and to this person that I was becoming close to, and I had a difficult time trying to find it, and that's when the idea of making a transgenre film, in the sense of cinema genre, about a transgender character, became quite solid. In Spanish, we use the same word for gender and genre. So we say transgénero. So I was making a transgénero film. And that really was quite liberating. It was suddenly a way to, it was like the device of the film was elastic enough to really be able to hold many, many things, many different tonalities and expressive tonalities, and to try to somehow work almost like a mosaic of these visitations to different variations in terms of genre. And this would also define the film. So the identity of the film itself was going to be in flux, was going to be elusive, was going to resist being defined in one or two words. That was at least the plan, and that was the way for the film to communicate with its main character, with its subject or human being that was being contained, studied. So a character that resisted being labeled, and a film that was trying to resist being labeled. The story was going to flirt with elements of melodrama, of romance, of thriller. It was going to be at times a ghost film, a character study, a film about a woman. And somehow this genre fluidity, this condition of the film, this quality of the film, was going to be intimately related to Marina, which is the name of the main character. So the question that the film inherently seemed to contain, what is a woman, also gave up or was hiding another question within, which is, what is a film? And that was my way to relate and to communicate with Daniela / Marina as a filmmaker. Could we play the second clip, please? So the character looking here and there in the film, the character looks straight into the lens. And I will soon try to connect that with what I was trying to explain at the beginning, the somehow triangular relationship between the filmmaker's gaze, the character's gazes, and the viewer one. So to talk about the third moment that was quite crucial in the process of making the film, by the end of the writing process, after like a year of work and of talking to Daniela, I was quite lost, because I really didn't know how to deal with the casting problem, how to find a transgender actress that was capable of singing, dancing, and that had a strong presence on screen, and that could carry the weight of the film, like Marina does through the entire length. But suddenly I realized that maybe Daniela was that person. So when a very first shareable version of the script was ready, I thought that our cultural advisor, already friend, Daniela, could really be the one to play Marina. And that was really something that I wasn't in any way capable of foreseeing, how deeply that decision or gesture was going to really define what the film was going to be. So Danila had some acting experience. She was a dedicated lyrical student, lyrical singing student. That's her voice. That's her singing, the one that you just saw. And she had a great strength. I would say she is a force of nature, an artist. So I sent her the script with the question, would you like to interpret Marina? So Daniela read the script and called me back and thought I was completely insane. She didn't know, I mean, she had very little experience in front of the cameras. She had done some music videos and some student film. She didn't know how to drive. The character drives a lot. And mainly she never had the experience of having such an absolute protagonistic role. So she asked me for some time to think. It took her 3 days, and finally she accepted. And somehow that really, I think, because the camera knows that in that body, in that face, in those eyes, in those gestures, there is a story. There are real experiences, and I think this somehow makes the entire experience of the film just more complex and richer. So after she said yes, of course, at the center of this game of artifice, of this combination of different genres of this film that is not by any means trying to be documentary-like, but there is very contained and that somehow is quite palpable, that everything is due to decisions and to artifice again. At the center of that polymorphic, multi-tonal kind of storytelling, there was a real heart beating now, Daniela's. So, just to briefly talk about some other aspect of the film, in terms of the subject, and again here, I would say, because we're talking about the relationship between spectator and filmmaker and the active participation of the spectator, therefore the way in which the spectator is politically active and completing what the film is offering, this all, of course, resonate, I think, because of the subject of the film, because of the casting decision, because of the genre, fluid quality of the film, etc. So after the couple of years that the writing took, I could see how this subject, this theme, this reality that for us was relatively abstract at the beginning, apart from the people we got to know, was becoming more present in the media, in in public discussions, etc. So back in 2014, when I was trying to understand, to grasp what the right aesthetical approach could be for the film, I realized that I was somehow very influenced by an imaginary, an aesthetic that had a lot to do with films I had watched coming, from made in the late 80s. An aesthetic that had to do with a completely different world, much more marginalized and extreme, I would say. And I felt that the people I was meeting didn't necessarily have anything to do with that reality. So again, the ways of seeing becoming suddenly evidently a tradition or a set of ideas that belongs to a certain interpretation of what this reality can be. Therefore, limits, definitions, labels. So somehow the mission of trying to at least aesthetically expand what the experience of seeing a film about a transgender character was already a mission that felt very charged and like a big responsibility. So my feeling that the only way to make a film like this was back then with the raw aesthetic of social realism, so to say. So handheld camera, following the character from behind, very like raw lightning, and that kind of like rough edges type of narration. And out of course, intuition, I thought, why not taking the absolute opposite direction and try to make the experience of watching a fantastic woman an experience that can be hopefully fully immersive, which color palette had nothing to do with this, with what I'm just describing, which calligraphy could offer a completely different experience, which the way it sounded could feel also like a different planet. And this wasn't just for the sake of doing something different, but again, to provide, to offer the spectator a kind of dance that could invite them to project different projections, to project different images, desires, fears, and fantasies on top of what this film was offering. As we know, if you keep doing the same thing, you obtain the same results. So here, I was always very aware that there was something very political in the color palette, for example, and the softness and the way in which the camera tended to be quite still or always like moving or floating, as opposed to, again, a very like rough kind of approach. So trying to deviate from that, let's say, we could say tradition, we could say set of ideas, ideological kind of representation, just to see where we could, until which point we could push, with the help of Daniela, the limits of this dance with the spectator. So as I was trying to tell you before, when the film started, there was a huge resistance in Chilean society to any kind of openness towards this subject. But because the film had like a whole good year to do its path, and luckily it obtained a lot of adherence and recognition and support. Somehow the discussion here was reactivated, and a year after that, when the film was released here, before the lucky accident of the Oscar, the temperature of the discussion had changed, because there was time for people to again, to discuss, to read columns, to get into fights, or to read, or to get informed. So I would say there was a very natural process of education. And when the film was released, and after the Oscar, that was somehow, because it never happened before, quite a thing here, or an important cultural moment. The land, was more fertile. The openness was bigger, and somehow there was kind of like a synchronicity with what the film was intuiting and was grasping. Maybe right before there were enough concepts or linguistic tools to even commonly talk about this. I think now that has changed a lot, and as a witness, as a friend, as someone that has had the opportunity to try to learn as I go, I can sense that there is an important cultural change, and I would say that made the way for the film a bit smoother. So before moving to the next clip, I would love to go back to this idea of triangular dance or triangular game between these three gazes that meet. The filmmakers looking at the spectator, the characters looking at each other, and the film looking at us. A little bit like what becomes evident, like at the end of the previous clip, when the character is literally looking at us. Then I would say the triangular game is literally completed. But before that, it's always operating. That's at least how it's very useful for me to think about it. So the virtuous process is only completed when the film is seen by that pending projection that the film is waiting to receive. The inner projection of the spectator that is over projected upon the one that let's say the filmmaker offers. It was useful to me while writing the film to imagine a spectator watching it and observing the way in which the other characters related to each other and looked at each other, and having time to shift between the different secondary characters that are looking at Marina, the main character, and that are literally defining her, naming her, insulting her, or many other ways of labeling someone. So it was useful to me to think that a spectator, regardless of his or her political position or where in the political spectrum they could feel comfortable, they would all have the chance to identify with different kind of reactions towards Marina. They could feel more shocked, maybe, at the people that were too violent to her, or maybe not. Maybe they could feel strangely agreeing, or literally just agreeing. Who knows? I mean, that's the freedom of existing. And I wanted the film to have that space for everyone to be able to move within, and to hopefully get lost in the dance, in the game, and to suddenly being asked by the film, or maybe by the main character looking directly into the lens, you've been seeing what others see on me, how others define me. What do you see? Others throw on me different projections. What are you projecting on me? What is you've had time to see many moral perspective around me. What is yours? And I think, hopefully, if the film is capable of doing this, I think it's again in synchrony with this idea that the spectator gaze is active, the spectator gaze is political, the spectator gaze completes the film, and somehow it belongs to a hierarchy, to a domain that the film can never subjugate. It is a place of ultimate freedom of the viewer. So, being that said, what I wanted is that towards the end of the film, this room that the film, hopefully, the cinematic device, hopefully was able to create, could allow for the people, for the spectator that was finding some kind of organic, natural, spontaneous connection to the character, that possibility of expanding the limits of his, her own empathy. If they didn't want to, that's okay. But if they wanted to, the film was going to offer that possibility of really connecting, not from an intellectual level, at an intellectual level, but emotionally from a place that hopefully escapes a more cold, let's say, I'm trying to say intellectual approach. So if the film was capable of making the spectator deeply emotionally connect with Marina, then how could that be questioned in terms of that what they were watching, they were seeing was not only a woman, but a completely legitimate human being. So I wanted that to be a real possibility, and that's why at the end the film offers this kind of like again, dance, to use that word. So if you want to dance with the film in those terms, the film will dance back with you. That's why I think frustrates me a little bit about the fact that no one really understood the implicances of the title. I think that's my mistake, because A Fantastic Woman is quite, it's a title that has a lot of energy, and it's not easy to see that there is still an openness to it, because the word fantastic means at the same time two things. And I would love for the spectator to decide in which way she is fantastic. In the way of someone that has extraordinary qualities, or in the way of someone that is the product of fantasy. Of course, the film believes in one of those two. But I wanted the title to be somehow like a question. But that didn't really work. But at least it helped me to navigate along the way. I tend to think that good filmmaking and good cinema passages, they feel more like questions than like answers. And in that sense, the title was trying to connect with that attitude. So, because of the way in which the story is articulated, Marina is the center of everyone's gazes and looks. We see how she is perceived by others, and suddenly the film looks back at us, like I said. To connect with this, let's please move into the next clip, which I think shows what I was talking or sharing with you about this multi genre quality of the film, or identity of the film, and at the same time this element, this device of closing the circle or the triangle with having the main character gazing back at us. They are telling me that it seems that there are many questions. So if the team is okay, I'll be happy to move to that section. That's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Sebastian. I'm looking at him here while you're watching him there. So the most popular question at the moment is, did you ever doubt your ability to tell the right story? Sorry, the ability or right to tell the story, and if so, why?
I did after making it, because I would say that the notions of the political dangers of this kind of representation became public domain, I would say, at the same time that the Me Too exploded, and there was this huge cultural shift that we are still experiencing. So I would say I was half innocent, half naive, and I always felt that my moral authorization was my genuine interest and love and preoccupation and caring for Daniela, and that she was my way in, but not as a way to use her. It was our way in to this artifice, which is not her life or my life, which is something else. I think that when you make something publicly as an artist, you have to be ready to be crucified if you deserve it. But then, being that said, I think no one should be impeached of representing no one else. Otherwise, it would feel very restrictive, and I'm not sure that's a society I would love to be creating in.
Thank you. As the spectator is part of the completion of the film, can you talk about the different responses the film has received from different audiences and cultures?
Yeah, I mean, when while writing it and then right before releasing it in different countries, I always felt, oh, is this something that maybe is urgent and relevant and very alive as a problem, as a challenge for society like Chile's society or like a Latin American society, but not so much in more developed countries or richer countries. And to my surprise, it wasn't. You know, it was very alive everywhere we went. Of course, we found friction, but who doesn't? But we mainly found support, and that's something that is hard to plan, that you can only witness after it happens. So it was, it was very touching for all the team, because we never thought that the film was going to have all this life and have such a vibrant life. I had no idea.
Yeah, it was the assurance, I suppose, that it's a universal theme. Did you ever doubt? Oh, I've covered that one. You've made 2 features in 1 year, Disobedience and A Fantastic Woman. You must really deeply love the process, no matter how taxing. What aspect do you love most?
I would say don't repeat that at home, because it's not very recommendable to make 2 films in 1 year. But yeah, I mean, having the chance, I couldn't say no, because making films is difficult everywhere, and especially in a country like Chile. I love. For me, the hardest stage is writing, because everything is possible. And because writing, I think, is a process that confronts you with the worst side of you, with all those voices that tell you what should be done, what good taste is, what things are not recommendable because they are this or that, and all these manners that are just the worst enemy that you have to overcome every time, again and again, when you face the process of writing. But then I deeply enjoy once that is somehow tamed, and you have tamed yourself, and the idea has merged independently of you, let's say. And that's really rewarding. And at least to me, that really gives me a lot of energy. So after that, I can kill for an idea. I have thought about everything, and I have enough energy to go and make it happen. Shooting is always beautiful and painful, and then editing is like writing again. But that's where the ultimate magic happens or not, and it's really wonderful when things click, and by the power of language, the pieces connect, resonate, and elevate and lift off. That's something difficult to describe, but it pays off.
And so what you're saying is the combination of them all that you enjoy.
Yeah, I enjoy and suffer, but I'm very grateful of.
Were you able to concentrate on each of those films, singularly, or were you across both of them at one time?
No, while writing, I was dealing with, like now, for example, I'm dealing with working in 3 different script projects. So I love to co-write, so I have different co-writers I'm working with, and that's really great, because I don't think in life we get the chance to really have all these moments together, to really talk and go deep around a subject, and to deeply connect. By the end of a co-writing process, you have a very private and unique and rich nomenclature with the other person that is exclusively related to the project, and that somehow it's like a testament to the many hours invested, human hours invested. But then once I'm filming, I cannot. It's impossible to think about anything else. I mean, making a film, shooting, it's really absolutely absorbing, and I don't have the capacity to really get home at night and open the other, project and see how it's going.
I don't think anyone else does either. What mistakes do you think you made, and what would you do differently if you could do it again? And this is relevant to A Fantastic Woman. I am guessing, yes.
Well, that's, I don't know if this is the word in English, but in Spanish we would say Ukraine. It's an exercise that puts you in a supposition, that makes you ponder what would have happened if, but that's not what happened. So I don't know. I mean, for me, it's always kind of painful to see a film that is already done, because you just see mistakes and things that could have been better, controlled or tamed, so I would say it's about the next one and how you will apply whatever didn't completely work in the previous one.
To the next one, yeah. How did you make sure that the rest of your cast, crew, and production team had a shared ethical approach and understanding of the film prior to production?
Intuitively, I don't know if I really managed to have that right. I'm much more aware now of that need that can be reflected in all aspects of production. Back then in 2016, I wasn't still absolutely aware of up to which level you can really decide to aim in that direction, which is something I'm really looking forward to explore now. But I'd say in the same way as before, there is, when things are going wrong, we all can feel it, and just paying attention to that common sense. I think we managed to succeed because of what I've heard from the team, and especially from Daniela. But I'm looking forward to do it with more awareness the next time.
Are you thinking through conversation? Is that what you mean?
No, I mean, for example, one of the projects I'm doing is aiming to be paritarian, for example. I would love it to be balanced in terms of gender, or try to aim in that direction. I think that will reflect in many other subtle aspects of the film.
Yes, yeah. 50% women.
Like our new constitution.
Yeah.
will be paritarian.
Can you talk about your use of music and the fact that Marina, or Daniela, is a singer from a storytelling point of view?
Well, I love using music in films. It's one of the things I enjoy, I deeply enjoy. Now that you mentioned Gloria is like a hidden undercover musical, and and somehow A Fantastic Woman is too, in some ways. The character is a very musical character too, and I think it's just a way to smuggle things I love and the energy. You can borrow it or steal it and use it and take it into new directions. It's like energy that you add on top of what you're building.
There's a timer going here, but we definitely have time for another question. There's quite a few here, but I'm going with the ones that have been voted up. This is something that the audience can do. Tell me which questions they like best. So for the last question, how has Daniela's life been affected by being a part of this film?
Well, I don't want to speak for her, but seeing it from outside, there is an objective thing to say, is that she's working a lot. She's been called to many films, TV series, theater plays. She hasn't stopped since then, and I think that has been something that I'm very grateful of and proud of. And it's been intense for Daniela, but I know she loves her work, so I know that she's happy. But it's been, to say the least, life-altering for all of us, and especially for Daniela, that was always at the center of the entire project. She's, the soul of the project, and she has carried that many, now a couple of years after the film's release. She will always be somehow like a graceful, virtuous ambassador to what we did, somehow.
She's the soul, the heart, and the voice in that film.
Yeah,
she's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. But look, it's so disappointing that you're not actually here. We had the flight booked and we thought maybe we could wander out and have lunch together and you could be here for other sessions. And we're just so pleased that you wanted to tune in and listen to the other keynote addresses. Sebastian wanted to go last so he could hear everybody else speak. It's just been a real pleasure having you a part of the Big Screen Symposium, and we can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, and all the best for what's coming.
We'll still try and get you down to New Zealand.
I would love to.
Thank you. Thanks, Sebastian.
The Big Screen Symposium 2020 was brought to you by Script to Screen and J&A Productions. We gratefully thank our event partners, the New Zealand Film Commission, New Zealand On Air, Te Māngai Paho, Images and Sound, Screen Auckland and AUT. Voiceover is by me, La Lena Feonati, and music by Poddington Bear.